Yahoo, Prof here, and we got another quick video for you. This time it's about add-in cards. A lot of you want to know, Elliot, Profosist, why do you want all these PCI Express slots in your computer? We only put graphics cards in there anyway. Because there's cool stuff like this. This is actually an expansion card generally designed for the Mac Pro, from what I recall. Sonnet generally makes Mac products, but this is a really cool product, and I've been looking at these. Other brands like QNet make them for NAS as well. And what it is in there, I have a 10 gig card. Despite having a very high-end X570 board, I think that's the second highest end Asus made in there. It's like the ROG Hero, but not like the... Kitten, what are you doing? Hey. Hey. What are you doing? Yeah? Doesn't have 10 gig. It has two, I think it's 1 gig and a 2.5 gig. But I've had everything 10 gig for a long time. Basically since Windows 10 was a thing. Even had my home theater PC and server still on Windows 8 for a long time with 10 gig. So what a lot of the NASs will have is, because they only have one expansion slot, they'll have a 10 gig NIC and the ability to have 1 or 2 NVMe drives. Sometimes they'll degrade performance, etc., etc. In this case, Sonnet did one better. It is their McFiver PCIe card. It is a little out of date, because remember, it's for the Mac Pro, like the proper big cheese grater one. I think M1 chip. Two M.2x4 NVMe slots, and a 10 GBE port. So 10. No, you can't knock the new pen off onto the ground. Cute kitten. No, it's the brand new one. Here you go. The Nitro from Tactile Turn. This is their new seasonal fall 2023 pen. Oh, you put those little claws away. Yeah, you put. Hey. She's learning bad things from King Arthur. But this is like a combo card. So it's got two M.2s, which I've seen on NAS cards, and a 10 gig Ethernet, right? In addition to that, though, it has two 10 gigabit USB-C ports on the back. And on here, I'm really hurting for USB. You're like, Elliot, how could you possibly be hurting for USB? There's like 12 USB on the back. Yeah, but they're actually all running off of 2 controllers. So they're just internal hubs. So you know how many USBs are actually on the back? 6. If that. It might even be 4. What are you doing? Because there's 3 total USB 3.0 controllers, so there's Type A ports there, right? Well, there's 2 on the front, so that's controller, because generally with USB 3, it's 2 ports per controller. Same thing with USB 2. Sometimes it can be up to 4 for USB 2, or 5 technically. Generally, if it's more than that, though, it'll be a hub. So that's actually a big issue. Like, Asus does this all the time on their boards. I would rather they give me 4 full speed on the back and 2 full speed on the front with no shit, right? Then like 12 USBs in the front, 2 in the front, 2 more in the front, USB-C in the front, USB-C in the back. Like, I'm gonna have to do a bunch of testing just to figure out which one of those don't impede on each other. However, this card now has 2 Type-C 10 gig ports on it, like right on it, and you're like, that seems like way too much stuff. Yes, they understand that, but the likelihood of you needing to use all of these items at once is quite low. And here's another kicker that I'm going to do. You can do all of this on a by 8 slot, which is actually kind of crazy, because normally you can only slice it up into by 4 and by 4. Like if you're doing PCIe bifurcation, you can take a 16 and make it into 4x4s, or by 8 and 2x4s, etc. Right? But this is actually at least 3 devices, as in 10 gig. Then you got 2 USB Type-Cs. A lot of times, though, those are 2 individual chips themselves. I don't know about how specifically this one is set up. And then there's 2 M.2s on here, right? So that should be by 4 by 8. That should be by 12, and then that would be by 16, but it's on a by 8. There's actually a bridge chip on here, or a PLX chip on this card. And the interesting thing about that is I actually only have by 4. It's only in my bottom slot. Now that is PCIe Gen 4, but this is only a Gen 3 card. The PCIe Gen 4, technically Gen 2 by 4 is enough for a 10 gig. So I don't think, unless I'm trying to hit like both NVMe and the 10 gig or all the USBs at once, the likelihood of this happening is quite low. And as long as I make sure I'm probably not going from like this USB-C to the 10 gig card, what I can do is kind of like what I have here. If you look, I got those extra strain relief jackets on there. I'll color code them. Like yellow will be my onboard USB-C, or I'll know if I use the front one that's onboard. And I'll just make sure if I'm transferring directly from an external device to a network, I'm using one of the onboard Type-C ports rather than the ones on this card. But it's going to be very nice to have more than one in the back. I can actually leave Type-C devices plugged in, which is crazy. Because on even like newer boards like that PG Lightning, you still only get one Type-C in the back. Yes, it's a 20 gig. And one Type-C in the front that's a 10 gig. And that's it. In many cases, I might want to just leave my card reader for my micro SD or my SD cards just plugged in, or a bunch of other things. And I can't really do that when you only have one rear Type-C port, which is how I've lived in the past. Now I got a rear and a front, a little bit better, but it's going to be much nicer because they're even Type-C native devices like webcams, capture cards, that sort of stuff coming out. And that'll be really nice to have those dedicated ports on there. I will be, like I said, running it essentially PCIe 3.0 by 4, not by 8. Now it's going to go on a PCIe Gen 4 board since I have X570 with a 5950 in it. And we have a kitten and King Arthur playing. How you guys doing? But King's happy. He seems to be happy. He's learned that he can actually play with the kitten now. And that the kitten isn't just something that needs to be avoided. But the nice thing is that this has a heatsink for the M.2s and actually the 10 gig card. A decent chunky heatsink for that and for the USBs. So hopefully we won't run into overheating. Especially with the M.2s running at, what, by 2 3.0 probably equivalent. I'm not worried about those 980s in there overheating, but oh yeah, you haven't heard that yet. Okay, so here's another thing. I managed to sneak this M.2 heatsink under my NF-A12 or NHU12A. That's what it is. It's the cooler for the NF-A12 by 25s. I can sneak it under, and that's a 15 millimeter heatsink. Technically, I measured, I can do up to a 30 millimeter heatsink. Most of the big ones, well, not the huge ones, like you'll see in a bit here. Most of the big ones are 45 mil. So that wasn't a go. But I can do the ones from Sabrent, as those are 20-something high. They're below 30, 22, 23, somewhere in that range. They're 0.9 inches. So that's 2.34 centimeters to the inch. So it's like 22 millimeters high, roughly. So that'll fit here just fine. That looks like copper, and it is, but the copper fins are actually sitting in an aluminum thing. It's by JE. It's actually not a bad heatsink, but a lot of the higher end coolers, including the Sabrent one, has 3 small heat pipes. Some of the higher end ones from the likes of Thermalright have 1 or 2 thick. We're talking 6 millimeter, 8 millimeter plus heat pipes. And I can easily fit that on there. Also, over here, it turns out I can probably fit a better heatsink than the one that's built into the board, which would be nice. If you're running M.2s do overheat, guys. Even Gen 3s will. And the big cause of that is actually not necessarily the work done by the SSD. Now, Gen 4 will overheat by work. And a Gen 5 especially because the early ones are just basically overclocked Gen 4s. However, a lot of the heat issues that I run into with M.2s is because They're right either under or directly above the GPU. And basically, you get all the waste heat off the GPU just overheating them, just cranking up the temperatures, which is not great, especially with direct storage now being a thing. So the fact that I can pull off the stock covers that are basically more of a heat shield, like they have some thermal mass, but they're basically a flat piece of aluminum. I mean, it's better than nothing, I'm sure, but like some proper fin stack would be great. Like, here's what's going in the repair PC. This is the HR9 Pro Black. Now, the non-Pro just has see, this is 2 heat pipes, or it's probably like one big one. But the non-Pro is half as high. It's like, imagine that. That's the 45 millimeter tall one. Does not say on this box how tall this one is. A lot taller. I will have 0 problems in the repair PC, though, because it uses an all-in-one cooler. They do make a HR10 Pro, but it's less thermal mass, and it has a fan. And I guess if you're, like, active cooling makes a lot of sense. So the fan I can imagine the fan performs great. However, I don't want another fan, because it's a 30 millimeter fan. I can't get a Noctua to replace that. I tried finding anything to replace it. That is going to be tough. So I went with this guy instead. The HR9 non-Pro is about that tall. That's still too tall for in there. Like I said, it's about 45 millimeters. So I went with the Sabrent ones, and then like the newer one, it looks really well designed, definitely really well engineered. It's like $30 though, much more than the Thermalright Solutions. But that is my 4 terabyte 990 Pro in there, so it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And what I'm going to put in that one is a bunch of my older 980 Pro 1 terabytes, because that's what I used to run in all my systems as boot drives. And you're like, used to? That's still an amazing SSD. It sure is. But what ended up happening here is the 990 Pro ended up getting so cheap that why the heck not? And then what ended up happening, one of these is from the home theater PC. And a terabyte is not enough, because I can only have one NVMe in there with my drive configurations, because I use all the SATA ports. So I needed 1 terabyte was not enough between the OS, the programs, and then the games I wanted to keep on there. I mean, I could do it. You'd have to uninstall and stuff. It was just getting annoying. I'm just like, screw it. The 2 terabyte 990 were down to $130 or something. They're $250 when new, and the $250 when new for a 990 was already cheaper than a 980, which was $350 for a 2 terabyte when new, and that was cut down within a month or so of when the 990 launches. So even the MSRPs are crashing, and then now they're like almost 50% cost of their MSRPs, and their MSRPs were already significantly lower than the previous drive. So you're getting a newer, faster drive with better technology, and cheaper somehow. Like, now is the time to buy SSDs. Apparently Samsung is actually like attempting to they're charging more for the raw materials already. I've seen even flash drives from Samsung that used to be $13, they're already $16 on Amazon. So, because I wanted a couple 128s, I use those fairly often for like quick data backups for people. I can't even get the 32s anymore. They just don't make them. That's what I used to use for like Windows install drives or boot drives, that sort of stuff. But yeah, so these are actually the old ones, because this had a 2 terabyte. I bought this a brand new 990 Pro 2 terabyte when the 990 Pro came out. That is right there. And then I bought the HTPC one recently when that went on sale. Well, what happened is the 990 Pro 4 terabyte that just launched with their new VNAND, because they managed to do, Samsung always makes a single-sided, at least on their Pro drives, it's a single-sided SSD. There's no chips on the back. Whereas Sabrent, who has had an 8 terabyte drive since the Gen 3 days, they have no problem doing double-sided, and I don't know if they've done it or if it was like Crucial that did it, but we can actually have 4 chips, like 1, 2, 3, 4 chips on there, on one side. Then you can even double it when you flip it over. For laptops, you cannot generally have a double-sided drive. So that's why it's super cool that the 990 Pro 4 terabytes, so not only is this their highest performing drive, they managed to make it single-sided with their new NAND technology. And that actually makes the 4 terabyte, like if you look at the specs of a 990 Pro, the 4 terabyte, like all of the 990s are the same, and then the 4 terabyte is its own thing, which is usually not the case. Very interesting. I think I talked about that in an external, I think probably when I was talking about this guy, my T9 portable that came in. But also ended up buying this in 4 terabyte because it was so cheap, even though it's brand new. Like this was on sale, brand new. Or brand new on sale. The build quality on this is way better than even the T7 Shield. Especially with, there's now a T5 Evo coming out that's all plastic. Not the traditional shape, so if you're used to like fitting this someplace or you have like a mount for it or something, the T5 Evo will not fit, and it only is SATA speeds, not even NVMe speeds, which is fine. Like that's what T3 was essentially, but they're charging like almost as much as a T7, if not a T9. So I don't know what their thought is there. Maybe they're really trying to increase those prices hard and fast really soon. But because these are the old boot drives, one of these is from the repair PC over there, Dry Bones, because that was acting as my desktop. That thing has been murder rated. Over 80 terabytes written. We're down to 88% health. This one I was using before the firmware update came out that fixed the 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte 980 Pros, and then later on they found out the 990 Pros when they came out were having that same issue. So that's why this has such high wear, I think. Like, yes, 80 terabytes is a lot, but I have like 950 Pros with 100 terabytes that have 99% health, etc. So I have a feeling that that's because that was getting all this wear in use, because I was essentially using the repair PC as my desktop while the desktop was being built. And the other one's like super healthy. It's like 98% with 18 terabytes written. So, but they're all about a year and a quarter old for each of them. And then one's from the home theater PC and one's from the repair PC when it was standing in as my desktop. Those are going to go in as the drives on the Sonnet McFiver card over there. I'll just kind of use them as scratch discs. They'll be faster than SATA for sure. But I wonder how fast they will be with how restricted I'm going to make this, because I'm going to stick it in a buy 4 slot, even though it's a buy 8 card. I'm going to be really stressing this card. I really think, actually, like this card, like it's going to be useful in here, and I'm just going to give it a shot. But for something like my server that has a 10 gig NIC, but it only has 2 M.2s, it's an X470 board, and you're like, 2 M.2s and an X470? Yes, it's a special board. Most boards did not have that. It would be interesting to add that card in there, because I could add 2 more slots to a board like that, and I already need that 10 gig NIC. Supposedly, because those 10 gig USB-C are native on Mac, they also might work in Unraid. And I have issues with 10 gig working. Like, despite that X470 board is like the same sort of thing as this X570 from Asus, but none of the ports above 5 gig work above 5 gig. If they work, they only work at 5 gigabits a second. Most of them, however, just don't work. So if this is like some sort of, like if that has, like they were saying that that's like a natively supported 10 gig chip in there, maybe the server could actually have some fast USB. And you're like, why does a server need fast USB? You just get off the internet. Well, sometimes it is fastest to just grab this honker and plug it right in. And let the system itself do the transfer, because you're going at gigabits per second then. Rather than gigabit per second, or gigabyte per, you're going at gigabytes a second rather than gigabits a second. That's the one I was looking for, I think. But yeah, so let me get this all wrapped up. I got to get that NIC out, shut this thing down. I need to get this cleaned up so I can work tomorrow. Oh, jeez. And then that 990 Pro 2 terabyte is going to go in the repair PC, because the repair PC is getting the 5600 X3D that a buddy picked up for me at Micro Center. So it'll have Gen 4 they can take advantage of that guy over there, that 2 terabyte. Um, the Chibi PC really could use a 2 terabyte drive, but what it's going to end up getting is there's a SN750 black 2 terabyte that's in my Razer Blade Stealth. That's probably going to get sold because I have fully decided on love that thing. That's my Surface Laptop Studio 2. Yeah, that thing has been working great. And I was going to kind of like keep the Blade Stealth around for certain things, but that thing's just better. And it's so much nicer just to have everything on one system. Like right now that I have my desktop working, it's getting a couple upgrades here and there, and I ordered cable mod cables for it. But with the laptop too, you just grab it and I can do anything. That's the whole point. Is my laptop should always just be able to do whatever my desktop can, just slower. So it doesn't make sense to have like certain applications on certain laptops. That's just ludicrous. So if anybody's looking for a Razer Blade Stealth, it's the second last generation, so it's a 10th and a half gen, and the 1650 Super. Because there is an 11th gen version. That was the last one. Lenticular has that one. And that one's got dual Thunderbolt, whereas mine has single Thunderbolt and I think it's like a 10 gig USB on the other side. It does charge on both sides though, because the first 10th gen that had the lower wattage TDP CPU and the 1650 non-super only charged on one side of the USB. It was like this weird. The 11th gen is like primo, but mine is like that half step that I ended up getting. I think it's the late 2020 edition. Is a significant step up over the first 10th gen edition, where they were really worried about thermal, and it turns out that it's fine. And because that's toggleable with Intel, you can just tell it went on battery to use the lower TDP. Why not, right? So let me get this popped together here and see if I can get it slotted in there. And you're like, you're fitting a lot in this package. Sure am. But that is what I mean by why you guys think I say that, like, from the get-go, X570 is not enough. I have every DIMM slot full. I have every PCI Express slot full. I have most of the SATA full. This is why I need an HEDT build. And Threadripper does seem to be coming back. Entry point's a bit over $1,000 for the CPU, but I want to see those motherboards. If they only make super high-end motherboards, there's no way I can justify it, because you'll be buying like a $3,000 motherboard for a $1,000 processor, and that just doesn't make sense. Though I mean, that is the route motherboards are going. Like the PG Lightning that's in that build back there is just about the only X670E motherboard below $300 that's worth buying. And even the Tai Chi is up to $400 or $450 when it was always a $300 or even just below $300 motherboard. It was only like the premium editions that went up above that, like in the $400 to $500 range, which you generally didn't need or want that unless you had a specific use for it. So, and then think about it, like if you put a fit like that's got a, say you buy a 5800X or something like that, and it's a $300 motherboard. No, that's like you're paying the same for the CPU and the friggin' motherboard. That's crazy. Well, to most people, or in previous eras of pricing, that would be ludicrous. But that's kind of where we are. But it hopefully isn't that exaggerated once Threadripper comes out. Because I basically want the base Threadripper chip, which is the 24 core. That's about $1,000. I could do $1,000-ish for a motherboard as well and still justify that. And that could actually go in my case labs over there that this build was supposed to be in. Like right there, with all that water cooling and radiator space. But if it's the outlandish prices we were seeing, especially on Threadripper Pro, because remember, technically the Threadripper motherboards can take Threadripper Pro CPUs now, so they might overbuild them and charge ludicrous amounts, which is that'll defeat the point of the whole platform. This is definitely a build where I'm not just going to snatch it. I will plan it out, because the whole thing too is apparently NVIDIA is not going to update their graphics cards until 2025. So that's more than a year away. So I won't be building a new CPU or a new build till then, because I have a 3080 Ti in there, and 3080 Ti is just above a 4070 Ti, and that is enough right now. It really is. So Let me know what you guys think on all this down below, and I'm going to get this set up and installed. Hopefully I'll do a follow-up video and let you know how it went, where I can see it and make it bottleneck, etc. So let me know if you guys have used anything like this before. Like I said, these sorts of expansion cards are much more common in, you'll find Synology ones, QNAP ones, like in the NAS market, but a lot of those do not have drivers for PC. This Sonnet has native drivers for Mac, and it has drivers for PC, which is awesome. As always, guys, have a good one. Peace.